Hello and welcome to the PvP guide on my channel. I will cover PvP basics, item builds and skill trees. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's go. First things first, as always, let's start with some basics. Firstly, I want to talk about the PvP buffs and debuffs. So first of all, there's a buff/debuff called Spirit of a True Warrior that's active in PvP, which will give you -3 movement speed, -0.6 attack speed, each one on level 100, plus 75% block value, -35% damage, plus 40% HP, plus almost 52k armor value, as well as almost 26k resistance values. On top of that, no jewels nor runes and no essences work in PvP. So it's only about your equipment and your gems in PvP. The maximum socketable amount of onyxes is 30, as well as from rhodolites and zircons. You can socket up to 50 rubies, so it's the same as in PvE basically. 50 amethysts, 30 emeralds, 30 diamonds, 10 opals, and I didn't mention the armor resistance gems because they're not needed in my opinion. The next basic I want to talk about is PvP honor buffs. There are different kinds of honor buffs. The ones you can buy from the shop, which either give you 50, 100 or 200% more honor for 30 minutes. And depending on their value, they cost a different price of undermonths. Next off, we got Premium Mentor and Guild bonus. The Premium bonus is 25%, as well as the Deluxe bonus. On top of that, there's the Mentor bonus. So as soon as you have one character that has more honor than another, you will get 200% more badges of honor after completing battles on the other character. On top of that, for each member in the guild, you get 0.1% badges of honor after completing battles. So up to 5% more for a full guild. Then there's the honor skill tree, where you can use up to 25 points to get up to 25% more honor after completing battles. As well as the daily quest, where there's 3 levels of the daily quest: bronze, silver and gold. The bronze one gives you 15% badges of honor after completing battles. The silver one gives you 15% more badges of honor after completing battles as well, but on top of that you will receive 5% less damage from enemy players. The golden one gives you 30% more badges of honor and also the 5% less damage taken from enemies. And on top of that, the other 2 daily quests can give you a boost in armor and resistances or health points as well. Starting off from the silver one, which will last for 30 minutes, and the golden ones will last for 60 minutes. Next basic, I want to quickly cover which class usually plays which element. Of course, there will be players that play a different way, but I would say those elements I listed there are mostly the meta. As Dragon Knight, you will always or almost always play on lightning. I've also seen Dragon Knights playing on armor only, but you will do usually more damage when playing lightning because of the lightning stacks, but more on that later. Most mages I've seen are playing fire, because the fire guardian then makes insane amount of damage. You will want to kill the fire guardian as soon as possible, because that's the biggest damage skill of the mage. I've also seen some mages on ice, especially with the new Big Game Hunt mythical set. That's pretty strong. But I've also seen some mages play on poison with the Q10 poison shoulders. So mages are always up for a surprise. Rangers usually play fire or lightning. I've seen both equally, I would say. Fire with the bird of prey as well as precise shot. Lightning with scatter mostly, and the bees. Dwarves usually also play lightning, the most that I've seen currently, but I also seen some play on poison. Next off, I want to quickly mention Moonwalking, that I already mentioned in another DK guide on the channel. Make sure to check that out as well. As you can see, I'm comparing the 2 perspectives here. My own perspective and how it looks on a different character because of the ping. So if you see someone shooting or attacking while walking backwards, that's usually because of the so-called moonwalking and the ping difference. Lastly, before we look at the item builds and skill trees, let's look at the PvP modes real quick. There are 4 PvP modes in the game right now. The 1v1, the duel, 3 versus 3, which is now a 5 versus 5 team deathmatch, 5 versus 5 capture the flag, and 6 versus 6 storm the fortress, which is also a 5 versus 5 mode right now. I've listed you all the quests and rewards here, as well as the time limits and when the damage buff spawns. Of course, there are also other buffs in the 5 versus 5, like the defensive buff, which gives you a lot of armor value, and there's also spawn times for the healing spheres in 5 versus 5, as well as a movement speed buff in 6 versus 6. But because I think that the damage buff is the most important buff, I only listed that one here. Of course, for flag decays, it's also important when the healing spheres in 5 versus 5 spawn, but there's a sound actually for that. So if you have in-game sounds turned on and the sound effects turned on, you will hear the healing spheres spawn in 5 versus 5. Now that we've covered all these basics, let's talk about the offensive build for PvP and its skill tree. Let's go. Always, I've done an overview for you for which items you could play and also the alternatives you can play. So the most important set for PvP for the Dragon Knight is of course the Dragan Set, which is insanely powerful in PvP. As soon as you hit your Groundbreaker, you will smash twice as fast, and also your damage is increased by 100%, which also counters the damage debuff from the PvP debuff that we've talked about earlier. On top of that, you should play as much crit as possible. If you want to know why crit is so important, check out my first decay guide video, where I explained that crit reduces cooldowns, and the higher your crit is, the more damage you will do. That's why I'm also using the Rocketman Adornment, which gives a lot of crit, and I also try to use the base enchantments of several items to boost the crit even a little bit further. On top of that, you only need 2 block items to reach 80% block in the current meta, because you get so much block from the PvP buff. On top of that, you will need to play at least 2 movement speed items if you want to reach a high movement speed. Since the movement on boots is capped, as I'm showing you here, you can insert even more movement speed gems, but the movement speed won't increase. So there's a certain cap, and once you reached it, you will not get more movement speed. That's why you're not playing with 10 movement speed gems and 4 movement speed enchantments, or that's why at least I am only playing 3 movement speed enchantments and also 1 damage enchantments and 2 damage gems in my boots. For attack speed, I play one-handed with a high attack speed base value, so I can reach the highest break point of 3.636 with only 1 attack speed item and the Mortis ring. As resistance item, you can play the gloves from Brigavik, which are great because they also give you additional 10% armor and have an additional resistance enchantment. The Brigavik items, the belt and the gloves, are so powerful because they will make enemies need to break 10% more resistance or armor to break you 100%. The remaining items can be split up into health point and damage items. For health points, you can play the Kingsteel necklace and the Dragan shoulders because they have such a high HP value on them. For the 2 remaining items, which in my case are the Cloak of the Black Knight from the Dragan set and the Secret Mark Q8 torso, I can play them either on crit or damage, one with the opals on crit and the other item with rubies on damage. If you build the opals on the cloak, you can build yourself multiple Secret Mark Q8 torsos with, for example, one with life and one with damage, and switch them in case you need either life or damage. My opals have crit, damage and movement speed on them, because with the additional movement speed of the opals, I can reach 13 movement speed in the arena. On top of that, you can build yourself elemental resistance items for 1v1. In case an enemy is playing on ice, you switch them on ice. In case an enemy is playing on fire, put in fire. Or for lightning, the lightning resistance gems to have an advantage in 1v1s. Of course, for PvP group modes, I would always play an item that boosts all resistances. In case you don't have the Dragan set, you can also play the alternatives that I have listed you there. With the Sargon helmet on crit, the Gorga cloak on HP, and the World Drop Warlord pauldrons on crit as well. And that's the stats I'm reaching with it. As you can see, they're way lower than with the Dragan set, but I mean that's the sense of a mythical set. I also tested this set in official PvP and managed to get some wins in 1v1 against quite decent players, I would say. Now let's talk about the skill tree. Firstly, you want to put 2 points in the lightning mastery, so you get the lightning stacks and the lightning field when being stunned. 5 points in quick striker as usual, so that critical hits reduce cooldowns and you get attack speed. 10 points in impatience, so dragon height as well as outburst and furious battle cry have way less cooldowns. Those skills are really important because dragon height is your immunity skill as well as a stun removal, as well as Fierce Battle Cry. On top of that, you can heal yourself in Dragon Height. And why Outburst is also so important is because it slows and reduces the resistances of enemies. On top of that, Outburst has a synergy with the Banner of War. Where for each point of Outburst, you get 5% movement speed reduction on top of your Banner of War. So in total, you get 90% reduced movement speed in Banner of War. And if you have somebody in Banner of War with Outburst, they can't move anymore. Then Furious Battle Cry gives you damage, stun removal, and movement speed. 5 points in Iron Power and 5 points in Groundbreaker to unlock stuns and also reduce the armor and resistances. And lastly, 1 point in Rage Attack, so you unlock the buff where you can stack attack speed and movement speed. Now let's talk about some tips for playing. Decay is very strong because of the immunity and the amount of stuns the Dragon Knight has. The weak point of a Dragon Knight is that your stun removals have high cooldowns and you have to get close to an enemy to actually make damage. That's why you should not use your Furious Battle Cry to initiate a battle, but rather keep it for when you're stunned to escape the stun and the damage applied of the enemy. On top of that, if an enemy is quick in movement speed and runs away, try to get so close that Outburst can slow them. So they have reduced movement speed, so you can get closer and actually apply damage. For each smash, you will build lightning attacks, but they will disappear after 5 seconds. So if you can keep close to an enemy to always keep the stacks alive, you will do more damage. On the other hand, if you once hit an enemy with smash and you get close enough for an outburst, you can also use outburst to do some additional damage without having to be very close like for smash. If you realize an enemy has used all his stun removals, try to get close and put the Banner of War so they can't move anymore and you will be able to apply free damage. If you initiate, use your Spikes shield so the enemy will receive a little bit of damage when trying to attack you. If Rangers or Mages put down their Guardian or their Wolf or Tree, use them with Dragon Height to heal yourself in case you are low. And other than that, have fun testing and comment down below if I missed something or if you have any other tips for the other players. Now I want to talk about the Honor skill tree. I'm skilling Will to Survive for 10 talent points, so I regenerate 2% of the HP per second when Dragon Height or Furious Battlecry is active. I use Unstoppable, so I'm immune to debuffs, and I can also remove stunning effects with using Dragon Height. Then I use Supernatural Regeneration, so I regenerate HP if my HP falls below 33 HP, which is also really strong. I don't skill Wall of Death, because I don't think that skill is really strong and useful right now. For the rest points, I used Steadfastness, so I survive a little bit longer. You could also skill Defiance if you want to be stunned less, Pervasive Attacks if you want to do more damage, but be less tanky, or Crowd Favorite in case you're just farming honor and you don't care if you lose once or twice. But what to skill up there is personal preference, but I like to be a little bit more tanky. I use this honor skill tree for the offensive and the tank build that will be covered next. Now let's talk about the flag tank build for 5v5, which you can also use in Storm the Fortress when you're on the attacker side, because the damage on turrets is fixed on the skills and is not influenced by your base damage. For the tank build, what you want to do is max all your defensive gems. 50 HP gems, 50 amethysts, 20 resistance gems. You also will need a lot of movement speed gems if you want to have 13 movement speed with flag. You will need 30 movement speed gems, and on top of that, opals with movement speed. I myself have built me defensive opals, which are not maxed yet, but I can reach, as you know, you only need 2 block items. The reason why you don't need an armor item is in the skill tree, which we will talk about later. As alternative to the Midsummer necklace, you can also play the Medusa necklace, which will boost your dragon height even further so it lasts longer. On top of that, you could also think about single resistance rings if you know there's a strong enemy in the team which plays on a certain mastery, like the gloves for 1v1s. But since I've already talked so much, simply watch it in game. As you can see, I have 30 movement speeds with the flag, which gives me minus 30% movement speed. Without the movement speed opals, so with 3 movement speed items, I only have 11.3 movement speed. So as you can see, you need the opal items as hybrid item to reach 13 movement speed with the flag. My item build is not fully maxed yet. As you can see, I'm missing some resistance gems, and on top of that, I'm also missing my defensive opals, but I think my stats are already pretty decent for that. With Dragon Height, I reach around 75% resistances and armor as well, which is pretty nice. And also with Spike Shield, my armor rises above 70%. In this build, you also don't need 10 movement speed gems in your boots. That's why I'm only playing with 6 because of the high movement speed value. Then the gloves on movement speed, where I will change 1 or 2 enchantments later as if I max them. The shoulders with HP and the helmet with HP as well. Now let's look at the skill tree for the defensive build. You will skill Immovable Wall, which gives you armor, increased rage for taking damage, and you will heal yourself with Mighty Wild Swing for every hit enemy. On top of that, if your health falls below 33 health points, you will also get armor for 10 seconds, an additional 100%. Also with each talent level, you get more armor and more healing. So that's really, really strong, and that's also the reason you don't need armor gems. Your main damage skill is the Spike Shield, because you don't have damage yourself. You will skill Spike Shield, so you can do a little bit of damage. And Spike Shield also increases your armor when you're being hit. Spike Shield has a synergy with Mighty Wild Swing and gets increased damage from it. Then of course, Dragon Height, because Dragon Height is your most important skill for carrying the flag, with Impatience skill as well, so you get the cooldown more often. And with this skill tree, it will last for 18 seconds. Then I've skilled 8 Reduced Rage for Mighty Wild Swing, so I can heal myself more often, because of the Immovable Wall skilling. Then I use Outburst to slow enemies and enemy players that are chasing me, and also the Banner of War, so I can crowd control an area and slow people in this area. I also use the stuns from Iron Brow and Groundbreaker to help my teammates stun the enemies. And now I want to showcase a situation where I'm chasing the enemy tank because I know that I soon will have my Banner of War cooldown again. I'm being stunned and in a singularity, so I activate my Dragon Height. Then I'm stunning and slowing the enemy tank with my Banner of War and all my stun skills that I have. So my damage dealing teammate can kill him because he can't escape his attacks. And since I still have Dragon Height active, because it lasts so long, I can still run to my own base and capture the flag with the Dragon Height active. That's it for the PvP tank guide. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, I would be so happy if you would support the channel with subscribing. Other than that, Have a great day and see you in the next video. Goodbye.